Hey, folks, we're live in the pre-show. And any second now, I'm going to get our servers hooked up. This is an uneventful time of the show because it's not technically part of the show yet. So here we go. I'm going to light it up and bring the sound way down so we don't get echoes. And in just about 3 minutes, we'll be ready to roll with this live show. How's everybody tonight? Good to see y'all. See, Uncle Dave is here. Hello, is anybody out there, he says. Niall Parkinson responds, just me. And, oh, that was like 15, 20 minutes ago. So, Barbie D, good to see you. Leslie Holker, good to see you. Glad to have everybody starting to join up. Master Finn, good to see you, brother. Hello and good evening, Intrepid crew, says he. So, we're just killing time for 2 more minutes till we can get rolling here. How's everybody's day been? I just had a lovely little repast of something very common, but something very good that Rainey made. She makes that special request by me. I said, make some of that ground beef and mushroom gravy over mashed potatoes. Just something fast, because she wanted to know what we wanted to eat. I said, that's what I feel like. I didn't ask her to make it. I just said, boy, I feel like that, and that might be good. I said, maybe shrimp would be good or something. She made the gravy. So we were just talking this afternoon about recipes and things that we can make that are better than the food we eat. We eat kind of shitty. And yeah, it does, Ramelian. It was very good. And I'm going to have more after the show. We don't eat very well. I mean, the kinds of food we eat, we could cook a lot better, but we get so worn out during the day. It's like, who wants to cook? Who wants to cook tonight? And not me. And so we end up making stupid stuff. I love shepherd's pie, June Shasta. Yeah, it's kind of a shepherd's pie. Doesn't have the vegetables and things in it, but I like shepherd's pie. You go ahead and make your mix-ins, and then you do the mashed potatoes, the mash, and put it over the top and bake it. That's good stuff. We got about 25 seconds, and we go live over at Odyssey Radio. All right, go dark, and we'll be back. You'll see it as soon as the show starts.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody. Welcome to the program. This is your host, Scotty Roberts, same night as every night. And this is the Intrepid radio program right here on Odyssey Radio. You can go over to Odyssey at ODYSYradio.com. Come on over and see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. You can watch this program as well in its video simulcast in two places. Facebook.com/Odyssey Radio and on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. While you're there, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, like the program with a thumbs up. And also, if you want to become a member of the channel, you can do that by clicking on the little join button down here below the window. And I appreciate it. That's all. Now let's move on. Let's talk about today. How was your day? Good to see you here. I'm listening to, and I've had a couple of very small conversations about the, how shall we put it without getting too political, the dog and pony sham of the one-sided, highly partisan roundtable hearings that are going on in primetime television. How rare is that? Primetime. Now, the Democrats are putting on this big dog and pony show to try to, in a last-ditch effort, redeem themselves from two things. Number one, the upcoming midterm elections. They have no issues. Their president has destroyed everything he's touched. The administration has aided him in that. There's my political opinion, opining in there, if you can tell. And in the process of doing that, they have pretty much guaranteed that the congressional elections taking place, midterms this November, about 5 months from now, are going to shellac the Democratic Party and the left in this country. So what are they doing? They're pulling out every stop they possibly can. And so there's two things with these hearings that are going on right now. One, if you're not awake enough to notice this, you're not woke, certainly. Well, if you're woke, you're probably part of all that. If you're not awake, you're not going to see this stuff. And I'm talking about how it affects us in life. I'm not talking about which party you belong to. But if you can't see what they're doing, you're not looking. And you don't want to see what they're doing. This whole thing, the whole show about saying that the January 6th protest, which turned into a riot from a very small percentage of the people that were there, all without weapons. They're calling it a coup attempt. They're calling it insurrection and all of those. Only the people on the left. It's a one-sided issue. America doesn't really care that much about it when it comes down to the fact that they can't afford things anymore. We won't get into all of that. So it's not a big deal for most Americans. Oh, the president called, and many of his followers called the January 6th riot at the Capitol the worst thing to ever hit the democracy in this country. What a noob. What an idiot. It's a lie, first of all. It's a rhetorical lie to try to create the other side looking bad, because it's all blamed on, of course, Donald Trump on the day that he's leaving office, or close to the day he's leaving office. And so this whole thing is being staged as the dog and pony show to try to ensure that Donald Trump will never be able to put his name on a presidential ballot again in a national election. That's all this is about. It's, as I've heard some people put it, it's impeachment number 3 of a non-sitting president. That's what they are attempting to do. And if you don't see that, It's not that you're in the wrong party. It's that you're not thinking. You're not looking at everything that's going on. There's nothing new being revealed in these hearings, nothing we haven't already known. They're just contending certain things. And when it is a hearing that's supposed to be a roundtable hearings on the January 6th thing, and there are no Republicans other than 2 that were approved by the committee, which are Republicans that don't really hold to the other side. The Republicans, for the most part, or anybody that disagrees with the Democrats, have been excluded from this because, like most totalitarian regimes do, they do not want controversy. They do not want dissenting opinion. And this is what you're getting. So if you're watching any of that or have noticed any of that in the news, what's going on here is just a big sham dog and pony show. And we'll leave it at that. Compared to what they allowed to happen here in the Twin Cities, January 6th was a non-factor. Ain't that the truth, Leslie? My old neighborhood, as I've mentioned before, 2 blocks from my old neighborhood was where all the BLM riots took place 2 summers ago, the burning of Minneapolis, where over 90 businesses were burned to the ground and looted in those neighborhoods, all down that strip. And that was, that's a peaceful protest, we were told by the left, because they were supporting the cause behind it, not necessarily the actions of destroying people's business. Well, it's anger that should be coming out. These are how these things are done, we were told. But on January 6th, when over 500,000, that's 500,000 people, folks, showed up on the Capitol steps and in the ellipse there, when they showed up to protest the election as being a sham election, most of those people went home when Donald Trump issued a statement. He said, "Hey, everybody, go home. Don't do this. You can protest, but go home peaceably." Well, you had your holdouts that didn't. But as I have said rather facetiously, tongue-in-cheek, when it comes to the gun issue, another thing going on with the left right now is how can you be a real human being and lead in this country if you don't believe that there needs to be something done about our guns, is what we're hearing. It's more rhetoric of the same thing. But as we hear in the gun issue, this is something that the left is camping on to try to retain power, to try to ignore the truth of matters and push the rhetoric. It's very Alinsky-esque in nature. So, all right, you know what? I have to do this every night. I'm sorry I got it right now, folks. I got to step away from my mic. I'm sorry I have to do this every night and shut this door. All right, there's yelling and gnashing of teeth going on upstairs. You would think my house is a madhouse over here if you were just catching these things casually. We do have a couple of children that are attitudinal tonight, and so Rainey is up there dealing with it. And finally, after this has been going on for an hour and a half, these kids just niggling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, Rainey just exploded up there, and she's, "All right, that's it," I heard her say, and I could hear it down here. I don't know if you heard that coming from downstairs or coming from upstairs, but there it is. So sorry, folks, I had to step away from the mic to take care of that yet again tonight. So as for the gun issue, Leslie says, anyone who believes the evil is going to give up their non-registered guns are delusional. Nothing says victims like a gun-free zone. Boom. Well, it worked in Australia, we keep hearing. I'm sorry. That is not an apples-to-apples comparison. So anyone else notice how so many activists in U.S. politics are Canadian? Oh, see, now I didn't notice that. I didn't look for that. So Dave Potter says, absolute mayhem. That's it. And so, all part of life's rich pageant, says June Shasta. There it is. It's definitely interesting, isn't it? So, how many of those people were FBI agents? Says Chad Sanders. And that is also something. I'll bet you that's not coming out in the roundtable hearings because it doesn't support their cause. Hey, Niall, good to see you as well, brother. Glad you're in here. That's Niall from the chat room. So, well, there. And then there got to be more done to save our babies, says Barbie D. I don't know if you're got a laughy face up with that. There's got to be more done to save our babies. That is the rhetoric they use. If you are against this legislation, you are against saving our babies. I actually saw one congressman say something like that in the hearing, and the other side said, "Hey, that's enough of that," and talked him down. And so that's the kind of rhetoric that's used that they want the public to see. I stood up for the young people and the children of our country while the other party did not. They were against this legislation, which means they're for the massive deaths of all the children that go to school. That's the kind of rhetoric that's out there. That is the nonsense bullshit that the left is currently trying to foist on America. And they're linking that all into, of course, the January 6th. And I was saying earlier, I said I got a great way to deal with guns in the United States and weapons. How about this? How about we ban all the guns used by the rioters at the Capitol building on January 6th? Let's do that. Let's ban all the guns they brought to that insurrection, that coup attempt on January 6th of last year. Let's ban all those weapons in the United States. I, of course, was being facetious because you know why? There weren't any. That's the most ill-conceived coup attempt I have ever seen. I know. Let's go storm the Capitol building with harsh language and take it over. The worst thing I think that the rioters did was tip over the podium in the House chambers. They didn't vandalize any of the centuries-old statuary and paintings that were hanging in the hall. I think it's called the Hall of Paintings, as they're walking through the Capitol. If you noticed that, they didn't destroy anything. Unlike Black Lives Matter and rioting in Minneapolis, who destroyed everything in their path. The rioters, the conspirators, the insurrectionists, the coup attempt pullers didn't damage a thing in the Capitol other than the podium of the Speaker of the House. Tipped it over. Then somebody carried it up. Now everybody will say, well, there were X number of people who died. They have found that nobody died on sight, that there was one guy who had existing problems and had a stroke and died, one cop. There scuffling and fighting, from the handful of idiots that took it too far. Nobody died as a result of that. But the only death that happened on the scene was a protester shot by somebody with the Capitol Police because she broke a window. So you broke a window on the Capitol, death sentence without trial. There you go. So anyway, that's enough of that. I'm getting very political with this. That's not so much political as it is current events. This is what the Democrats in this country are trying to foist on the general public right now. That this was a coup attempt and that Donald Trump, the former president, should be taken up on charges and should not be allowed to ever run for office again. That's how afraid they are that he will. And by the way, it was just confirmed by Joe Biden's press secretary, I think it was, that he has confirmed that he's going to run for a second term. Has he got your confidence, folks? Right now, he's at, I think the last I heard yesterday was a 36% approval rating, which is about as low as it can get. So there were 3 people killed on that day. Other than Ashley Babbitt, I think that there were 3 people who died in relation to that. There were not 3 people that were directly killed by rioters. I think there were some people. How many were rioters? How many were police? How many were bystanders? None. I heard 31 too. Yeah, that's a grossly inflated number. And we can talk about that another time. We'll get into the detail of that if you'd like to, because I saw the details on that revealed. 36%. Hell, that's pumped up percentages by the propagandists who call themselves the media. Yeah, there it is. So anyway, all of this to say that the dog and pony show continues. It's been a dog and pony show since the former president stepped down and there was a peaceful transition of power. And that does not mean he did not protest it. Are we in this country not allowed to protest an election? Perhaps the only way to really protest is to vote that person out next time. We do have a democratic society. We are, however, remember, not a democracy. All of you, Niall, I'll say this for your benefit. You may already know this, but because you live in Great Britain, the United States is not a democracy by definition. It is a constitutionally limited republic that has democracy. And anybody else listening from out of the country. So there you go. And by the way, the right to own weapons is not given to us by the Constitution. The protection of that innate right to own and bear your arms is protected by the Constitution. It's guaranteed protection. And that's what our Constitution says. It basically says you can own arms and it shall be uninfringed by the federal government. So it's not the federal government's job to take that away. Hey, could you be noisier with that?
I'm trying to get it down the stairs.
Well, maybe you don't do that while I'm on the radio.
Well, I can't get it down the stairs any other way.
Maybe wait till I'm done.
Mom needs it now.
Well, you know what? There's a answer for everything, isn't there? There you go. That's my family tonight. I am actually considering, as a sidebar here, taking my whole family to family counseling. Not for Rainey's and my benefit, but so these kids can hear somebody else decipher. Maybe that's an issue you should talk about in parenting on this show. I have my sweet, fun, lovable children that like to come on the radio here and interrupt when they're not supposed to. And it's kind of cute sometimes, kind of a pain in the ass other times. But when she comes storming through the room and hauling a vacuum cleaner down the stairs, thump, 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 that becomes a problem. So I'm telling you what, maybe you don't like hearing this on my program, but I can't avoid not having it be distracting. So there's a lot of disrespect coming from especially one of our kids right now. There's a lot of disrespect in that she's passing that on to the younger one. And so it's when you hear me stop what I'm talking about to jump on a familial issue, it's because I've about had it for the day. And that one just got home 2 hours ago after being away for a couple of days at a friend's. So, and it starts right away. It starts from sun up till sundown. Rainey's frustrated by it. I'm frustrated by it. So there you go. Antoninus, Meditations of Antoninus, Epiphanes the Fifth. There you go. Morgan Snow, but according to JB, Second Amendment is not absolute, which means none of them are. So that's it. Joe Biden has said the Second Amendment and the Constitution is not absolute. Well, nothing's absolute in this world. But by way of government, it's an absolute. It was established. And unless the left plans to take down the existing government by coup in this country, the Constitution of this republic is an absolute. Now, can there be interpretation? Yeah, there can be interpretation. They've been doing it for the Second Amendment for years, working circles around it because they can't abolish it. Do you know that there's one way to change the Second Amendment constitutionally? That is to convene a constitutional convention and propose the new amendment or changes to the existing amendment. That has to be done. Then there has to be a ratification process where after, I believe it's 2/3 of the votes in Congress need to support it. Then it has to go out to the states. And the states, the 50 independent states, have to ratify any change to the Constitution. And there needs to be a 2/3 majority of the 50 states in order to ratify that. And then if that goes through, you got a new amendment or a change to an old amendment. It's usually a new amendment amending one of the old ones. So that is how that works. So if the left wants to get rid of guns, wants to put stricter and more stricter all the time, things that already exist, by the way, that are already law, if they want to do that, why don't they just write up a constitutional amendment? If the Constitution is not an absolute, write an amendment. Let's see if you can get it ratified by 2/3 of the country. It would be interesting, wouldn't it? So there you go. And you know what? This is part of life that's going on around us. If you don't live in this country, if you're not a citizen of this country, it might not be of great interest to you, but what happens in the United States affects the whole world. We've known that for a long time. And so this should be of interest to everybody to at least a certain degree. And for me to talk about it for 20 minutes shouldn't be any big shakes to anybody. It's part of what's going on in our nation right now. Leslie Holker said, just remember, Nazis disarmed the people. Wounded Knee happened after the Pine Ridge Reservation was disarmed. There's a reason they want to take your guns. They do not want the citizenry to have the ability to arm themselves and defend themselves. And they say it's all about muskets. I've heard now all over the place. Somebody big must have said something about this the last few weeks. People say things about, well, there were no bullets listed in the Second Amendment. There were no bullets at the time of the writing of the Constitution, the Second Amendment. Therefore, it doesn't apply to bullets. It only applies to muskets. Well, I saw a good friend say, well, bullets hadn't been invented yet per se, but we did have projectiles that launched from musket fire. So they're using those arguments to say the Second Amendment, that this is all about muskets. It only refers to muskets. Doesn't refer to they couldn't own cannons back then, President Biden said. Well, President Biden doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground because there were private citizens who owned cannons back at that time, and they were not prohibited from owning cannons at that time. Somebody's calling me, and it's not something I can take. So I've got to shut that off. I'm going to... That was a DJ. And so it's probably calling back one of the kids on my phone. So Dave Potter says, well, if bullets are the case, then I agree the First Amendment doesn't apply to computers, tablets, and cell phones because they didn't exist either. That's the same point I made with a friend of mine on the left who brought this up. We were having a polite conversation. She brought up the thing about bullets. And I said, well, if that's the case, I said, then the First Amendment, protection of freedom of speech, doesn't apply to computers or cell phones or electronic devices of any kind, because those didn't exist at the writing of the First Amendment, did they? So it's all stupid rhetoric. It's stupid. It's stupid and dumb. Why do these idiots keep using stupid rhetoric like that? Let's just go to the facts and common sense. Facts and common sense. Go by what the law says. Don't try to pussyfoot your way around the laws to try to change them. Just go by what they say. Write new law if you want new law, but make sure it's constitutional. Anyway, there you go. Steele, Randall, good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while, brother. Just thinking of you the other day. So there you go. That's all I'm going to say about. I've spent half of the show talking about something that is irking me in current events. And that is the sham dog and pony show called a roundtable hearing on January 6th. It's nothing of the sort. It is a one-sided, partisan only. No. Can we look at what? Oh, yeah. Let's look at other things. Rainey says, let's look at the Biden connection to Ukraine. So why not? Are there not more important things than determining that a one-day, not even a coup attempt, it wasn't a coup attempt on January 6th. It wasn't even an insurrection. It was a protest, and a few people went a little too far. Out of that 500,000 gathered there, there were under 200 people that were involved in doing anything that was crazed or extreme. And you know what? None of them had any weapons. So it was a pretty poorly conceived coup attempt on our government. It was a protest. Okay, deep cleansing breath. Let's move on to the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. We've been talking about these for a couple of weeks now, almost a couple of weeks. And we got a lot left to go, and that's okay. We can talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about on this show, and we'll enjoy it. And you'll take it, and you'll like it. Good old Humphrey Bogart line. You'll take it, and you'll like it. And there was, you remember that scene from the Maltese Falcon? There was the Gunsel, the Heat working for Sidney Greenstreet, and he was trying to put the heat on Bogart. Pulls his gun. Bogart takes it away from him, slaps him in the face. Hey, I don't have to take that from you. He goes, you'll take it and you'll like it. So, show. If you want to be listen, if you like being here, you agree with everything I say. But what I do say, you'll take it and you'll like it. And we'll see you back here on another night. So we'll get into things you like, and sometimes we'll cover things you don't like. Right now, I don't like doing politics, but right now I'm so fed up with politics. But stuff like what's going on right now in our country just has me at the tipping point. I am so done with that. Yeah, Steele, you use that on your wife tonight. You'll take it and you'll like it. Oh, my goodness, guy. Yeah, term limits. There need to be term limits. Can anybody name one thing that Joe Biden accomplished during his 47 years in government? Anyone? Moving on. The Marcus Aurelius. This little section of the Meditations, now we've moved into the third section, is entitled In Carnuntum. And Carnuntum, do you know what that was? Do you remember what Carnuntum was? The Battle of Carnuntum took place in 170 AD, and it was during the Marcomannic Wars. In the spring of 170 AD, swarms of German warrior bands attacked Roman provinces all along the Danube River. And in furtherance of this endeavor and for mutual protection, the king of the Marcomanni, Balamar, had formed an alliance with the Quadi tribe. And Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, with his son-in-law and chief military advisor Tiberius Claudius Pompeianus, crossed the Danube to drive back the raiders. The Romans and the Germans met outside Carnuntum in Upper Pannonia, which was the headquarters of the Legio 14 Germina. And the Roman army was inexperienced and outmatched. And the ensuing battle was a disaster for the Romans. Although the legions fought hard and bravely, they were no match for the Germanic warriors. 20,000 Romans were killed. And following this victory, the Germans besieged Aquileia and sacked Opitergium. And so there's this is where Marcus Aurelius is when he's writing this particular part of his memoirs, his personal journals to himself. As I've mentioned on other nights, these meditations, he never really meant them to be compiled into a book because there's no structure to them. There's no structure because these are all like journal entries of his. And an older version of them was once entitled To Himself, meaning all these things that we're going through in the meditations were things that Marcus Aurelius was writing to himself. They were reminders to himself. This is how I should live. This is what I should be. This is what I should be like. This is how I should rule. All of those things. See ya, Romeldian. All of that is the reason that he wrote these meditations. And they were later compiled, of course, into this book called the Meditations, which is not a cogent book at all. It's a gathering of thoughts. It's rather like, and I've said this before, like reading the Proverbs of Solomon in the Old Testament. It's not a cogent book that reads from one end to the other. It's all random thoughts, all written down, these Proverbs. So here's how Marcus Aurelius starts this. He's now in 170 to about 172. He's in Carnuntum, fighting off the Germans. And these are some of the things he wrote during that time. Here's the first one in this little book that he writes in Carnuntum, part of the Meditations. He says to himself, remember he's writing to himself, not just that every day more of our life is used up and less of it is left, but this too, if we live, can we be sure our mind will still be up to understanding the rest of the world? To the contemplation that aims at divine and human knowledge? If our mind starts to wander as we grow older, he's meaning, we'll still go on breathing. We go on eating, imagining things, feeling urges, and so on. But getting the most out of ourselves, calculating where our duty lies, analyzing what we hear and see, deciding whether it's time to call it quits. All the things you need a healthy mind for, all those are gone. So we need to hurry. Not just because we move daily closer to death, but also because our understanding, our grasp of the world may be gone before we even get there. So this is very interesting, I think, these words. Now remember, I'm passing this all on to you as you listen to this. I'm passing it on as almost as if it were like biblical text. I'm reading, I'm passing on, I'm commenting. I don't elevate this to the same level of God's spoken word, but I elevate it to the same level as the guys who wrote about God's spoken word in the Bible. They're passing on thoughts. Niall brought up a thought the other day where he was saying, do you think Marcus Aurelius gleaned some of this stuff from perhaps the Bible or other sources? Yeah, I think he did. Remember, he's about 100 years after the time of the Apostle Paul, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. Now, whether you believe the Apostle Paul hijacked Christianity and created Pauline Christianity or not, he wrote it and he had some good things to say. Marcus Aurelius is he's writing about his philosophy. He's being a philosopher. He's called the Philosopher King. So this is what that's all about. And so he says, pretty much he's saying, live life now with this. He's saying to himself, I don't have to hurry with certain things because I move every day closer to death, but also because my understanding, my grasp of the world may be gone before I even get there. So I'm hurrying now while I have the ability now. Iowa X says Romans are 5 feet tall and Germans 6 feet tall. No wonder they lost a big knife fight. There it is. So Uncle Dave asked that last night. What about the size, the height difference? So he says in the chat room, every time the Germans throw grenades at the Romans, says Antoninus in the chat room, the Romans pull the pins out and throw them back at the Germans. It's pretty much. So number 2 in this book, Marcus goes on and says, we should remember that even nature's inadvertence has its own charm, its own attractiveness. The way loaves of bread split open on top in the oven, the ridges are just byproducts of baking, and yet pleasing somehow. They rouse our appetite with our knowing why. Or how ripe figs begin to burst, and olives on the point of falling. The shadow of decay gives them a peculiar beauty. Stalks of wheat bending under their own weight. You can see sunflowers do the same thing. We used to fill our whole yard full of sunflowers. And when it comes time and that becomes so weighted down with seeds, that sunflower will just tip to the ground so it can drop its seeds into the ground. The furrowed brow of the lion, says Marcus. Flecks of foam on the boar's mouth. And other things. If you look at them in isolation, there's nothing beautiful about them. And yet, by supplementing nature, they enrich it and they draw us in. And anyone with a feeling for nature, a deeper sensitivity, is going to find it all gives pleasure. There's nothing wasted in nature. Even what seems, that was my editorial there. He goes on, even what seems inadvertent, he'll find the jaws of live animals as beautiful as painted ones or sculptures. He'll look calmly at the distinct beauty of old age in men, women, and at the loveliness of children. And all other things like that will call out to him constantly. Things unnoticed by others. Things seen only by those at home with nature and its works. I like that. Biblically, it says the if you deny the presence or the existence of God, the very rocks and trees will cry out of his existence. How do you write books and have a chat show when you can't string two thoughts together? Know about whether or not he learned some of this from Christianity. Don't know where you're going with that, Dave. Niall says, I think what Aurelius compiled was a secretive loathing of the structure in which he found himself. Yeah, I do too, to a certain degree. He nurtured his philosophical side, and I think he definitely had a secretive loathing, maybe not so secretive, of life around him and the way things worked. I think he believed himself to be what we would call, when we talk about it, awake, and everybody else around him was slumbering. Wake up, he's saying. If he's writing anything to anybody in these meditations, it's to himself and then anybody who would pick it up and see it, maybe through his own lifestyle. June says, oh, yes, Leslie, I missed something there. Leslie said, I don't believe in religion as much as I believe in living a good, decent spiritual life. Treat others with the love and respect. Isn't that what matters? It does. To some in certain church circles, that doesn't mean a hill of beans when it comes to eternal salvation of the soul. You have, who was it that said, was it Jesus himself or was it Paul that said, all our goodness, all our righteousnesses are as filthy rags in the sight of God, condemning us from the very start. And the filthy rags was a reference to leprous rags that they would wrap the wounds with. And there was also the that whole idea that there is nothing good that we can do to earn a salvation. If we could, theologically speaking, in Christian circles, if we could earn our salvation by doing good things, why did the Son of God have to die and be resurrected? That's the argument that we would use when I was in theological seminary. If I could achieve heaven or achieve eternal life or achieve grace with God through my own actions, why did the Son of God have to do anything? So there's a lot of holes in that, but there it is. Professor Bauer says he found resonance in questioning that which his mind encountered. That's exactly what Marcus Aurelius did. Iowa X is pre-Christian. There was a whole world before and after and aside from Christianity. Yes, there was. But remember, Christianity is also a sect of Judaism. So the same religion, it was around for thousands of years. So, Antoninus says Zoroastrianism. Yeah. Jerry Armitage, how you doing, sir? Great to see you live, he says. Good to see you live, too. Come around every night. We're live every night, Monday through Friday. Let's see. Yeah, it predates Judaism. And so I like what Professor Bauer said. I'm going to throw it up on the screen here and repeat it. Marcus Aurelius found resonance in questioning that which his mind encountered. That's exactly it. So moving on in the meditations. He goes on. Number 3 in this book in Carnuntum, when he was in Carnuntum at the fort at Carnuntum for 2 years. He says, Hippocrates cured many illnesses, then fell ill and died. The Chaldean, the deaths of many others. In due course, their own hour arrived. Alexander, Pompey, Caesar, who utterly destroyed so many cities, cut down so many thousand foot and horses in battle, they too departed this life. Heraclitus often told us the world would end in fire, but it was moisture that carried him off. He died smeared with cowshit. Democritus was killed by ordinary vermin. Socrates by the humankind. And you boarded, you set sail, you've made the passage, time to disembark. If it's for another life, well, there's nowhere without gods on the other side either. If to nothingness, then you no longer have to put up with pain and pleasure, or go on dancing attendance on this battered crate, your body so much inferior to that which serves it. One is mind and spirit, the other, earth and garbage. So he describes the soul and the spirit and the body. I think that's very interesting that he puts it that way. Iowa X says, yeah, he'd be a poor leader if he didn't question everything. Exactly. And once again, remember, he's writing most of this to himself, to remind himself of who he is supposed to be. These are his notes to himself. And just looking at the chat room, just seeing what all everybody's saying. So let's go back. He moves into number 4. Now, just some of these, I just want to go through them twice so you get the points he's making. So I'll pick up part of that last one again. Number 3. He says, you boarded, you set sail, you've made the passage. It's time to disembark. If it's for another life, he's talking about death. If it's for another life that you're disembarking this one, well, there's nowhere without gods on that side either. If you move on to nothingness, then you no longer have to put up with the pain and pleasure or go on dancing attendance on this battered crate, your body, so much inferior to that which it serves. The body serves the mind. One is mind and spirit, the other earth and garbage. I like that. Niall says the problem with history as it applies to conquest as this, it is never in context. It's in context of the person who's writing it, and that's pretty much it. And we all pretty much know that, I think. That's the way history's written. Number 4. And we've only got 4 minutes left, under 4 minutes. Don't waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people unless it affects the common good. It will, unless it affects the common good. That's about the only time I really worry about other people and what they're saying. How'd you get my phone? Oh, okay. Oh, got it. It's playing something right now on my phone. All right, let me shut this all off. It's distracting me. All right, don't waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people, unless it affects the common good. It'll keep you from doing anything useful. You'll be too preoccupied with what so-and-so is doing and why and what they're saying and what they're thinking and what they're up to and all the other things that throw you off and keep you from focusing on your own mind. This is very interesting. Remember my friend Carr, who just last week he wasn't found innocent. The jury maintained his innocence. He wrote something today that I thought was very interesting, that if I'm remembering it right, I think fits into this very well. Here's what he says. You know, since he was acquitted, since 3 of his peers found him to maintain his innocence, and he was set free on all this. Well, he wasn't in jail, but freed of all this thing. He's written for a couple of times about it. He said today, he says, you know, I don't give a damn about the ugly rhetoric going on in the dim bulb of the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, social media surrounding my not guilty verdict. Yawn, he says. But if you're friends with these people, think twice about them. My career and reputation were utterly destroyed, so if you think they're worthy of your friendship, do better. I agree with him. The people who talk about people is what he's talking about. All I have seen from certain circles since he was set free, found innocent, his innocence maintained by a jury of his peers, is that people now have to shift the attention and try to gossip. They have to demonize him in any way possible. Because, the Me Too movement, or as Rainey says, the Pound Me Too movement, needs to have that scapegoat to constantly rely on. But Carr's doing his writing. He's working on the things he needs to work on. To not, as Marcus Aurelius is saying here, he says, get talking about other people out of your mind. Straightforward, considerate ones are who you need to think on. The thoughts of an unselfish person are unconcerned with pleasure and sensual indulgence, generally, with squabbling, with slander and envy, or anything else you'd be ashamed to be caught thinking. And he's right. And on that note, we got to go. It's time to get out of here. So stick around for the captain's cabin. Live long and prosper.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Well, hey, welcome to the captain's cabin. We're going to have a little echo until this cuts out at the appropriate moment, which should be in about a second. I think there it is. Cuts out. We're off the stream over on the radio station, and our recording has recorded for tomorrow night, or for tomorrow on the station. Let's see. What are we going to do for the captain's cabin tonight? Thank you, Leslie Holker. Go get your book. If you haven't, I just happen to have a copy sitting right here. If you don't have a copy of The Sword and the Clay, my latest book, it's a kind of a kid's book, but it's a kid's book written for adults. Go pick it up. The next one I'm releasing is also going to be a kid's book written for adults. How to Be an Archaeologist. And then I've also got Andy Dabb's book, which we should be finishing up any day now and getting it ready to be put to press. So I think you'll find that one interesting as well. Yeah, says Rainey. You should come over and say hi instead of yell from the sidelines. So, oh, okay. She's talking on the phone with her ma. So let's see what else we got going on here. Gossip is the devil's tool. And the most times hateful lies. That's true. Jerry Armitage, man, Scotty, you have the perfect voice to do the documentaries, etc. Thank you. Should be working for the History Channel. I do once every couple of years for a day, for an episode. Yeah, that would be nice. I wouldn't mind doing that. So, but there's 3,000 people in line ahead of me, I'm sure. Niall says, we'll join you and the prof in the captain's cabin. Let's see if Professor Bauer, if you're still out there, if you want to join me in the captain's cabin, call in. And you too, Niall. And we'll see where we go with that. Let's see. Iwax says, did I see that James Patterson had to apologize for saying old racism? Old white writers face racism. No, I didn't see that. But that's nothing else but stupid. That's stupid. It's like I heard this thing about who is the character in the new Obi-Wan series. It's a black woman, and who plays I can't remember what the title of the characters are in that, but they're looking for the Jedi. They want to put them all to death. And she's kind of the head inquisitor type of, not the head, but higher up the ranks. I thought she was a cool character. I didn't think twice about the fact that she was a black woman playing the role. It's Star Wars. Who the hell cares? She didn't have a trunk or tentacles. She was a black woman. And then I hear in the news that everybody is supporting her because she got some emails that were racist-based emails, which is nasty. That's atrocious. That shouldn't happen. There are dumb people out there who do that kind of stuff. Send her nasty grams that a black woman ought not be, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? I didn't know about it until they announced it. So does racism exist on a grand scale because somebody in private sends a nasty message? Or does it exist because we promulgate it? If they at the studio hadn't come out and made a big thing, oh, let's speak up now against racism. Let's do this. Let's SJW it, social justice warrior ourselves. Say, we are so against racism because it happened to our actress in this series. It's like, well, we didn't even know it happened to her. We didn't know about it till you told us about it. So was it a problem before you told us about it? Maybe an isolated problem between her and the guy, and all she had to do was ignore the guy. And then you got everybody else from everywhere else. Anson Mount, who's playing Captain Pike in the new Star Trek series, was putting out a public, we stand with, I don't even know the actress's name. I'm like, that's cool. I think that's where I first saw it. And I thought, what happened? It took me a long time to even figure out what had actually happened to have him releasing that statement. Why are they standing with her? Because somebody made a big point of announcing to the world that some idiot wrote her a nasty gram. There you go. Leslie Hoker says Barack Hussein Obama drove racism back decades. And it was all deliberate to divide us. Isn't that the truth? Oh, it's a fan base thing, says Dave, Uncle Potter. It's been on the internet for days and days. I would say weeks, actually. Yeah, I saw it the first time about a week ago. And I saw about that. It's a fan base thing. Well, how'd the fan base find out about it? She complained about racism. That's why. From a singular or a handful of people. This racism exists. Complain about racism in the public, you're going to get people reacting to it. Fan base or no. So it was showing up in fan rooms all over the place. It was ridiculous. What, the slur? People against her? Or the story was showing up? I don't know which one you mean. My point is that racism is proliferated by the fact that we keep talking about it. Keep talking about it. I don't care what color you are. Most people don't. We're all grown-ups. Except for your weird, stupid people. By the way, the majority of racists are the same party that are still fighting to keep slavery. And they aren't Christian conservatives. Well, there you go. I wonder how 6% of the population pays Disney's bills. Exactly. That's a good question, Iowa X. Morgan Freeman said the way to get rid of racism is to quit talking about it. I saw that video with him. That interview. It was Don Lemon from CNN. Was asking him, really baiting him with these questions about racism. You're a black man, so surely you're going to agree with what I'm saying. And Morgan Freeman was like, no. He says, you want to stop racism? Stop talking about it. Professor Bauer, welcome to the program. Look how fast I did that. You're not even ready.
I'm trying to click on stuff and it's not cooperating. So
I hear you.
I think that an interview with Morgan Freeman was actually with Wallace, the older Wallace, not Chris Wallace, but his dad.
You want me to read that? Oh, just put it on my bookshelf. Say hi to everybody as long as you're here. We got a small screen tonight. Let's change it around. Let's see. Boom. And we'll get rid of the banner or the header. There you go. There's Rowan.
Hi.
Hey, Rowan,
Hi.
how are you?
Good.
Hi. Hey, Lieutenant Dan. Okay. Is there a brain in there?
You don't have a brain. Got a cut and you had dried blood.
A cut and dried blood.
There's
right
daylight
here.
from one end to the other.
Yeah.
Okay, good night.
Put up a candle. Good night. I love you. So
I think I was saying, Chris, Chris Wallace, the journalist, right?
Oh, it's Chris Wallace?
No,
I could have sworn it was Don.
his dad, I think.
It might have been another interview.
I think it was his dad, the other Wallace. I forgot the fuck his
Oh,
name.
Mike Wallace.
Mike Wallace, yeah.
No, this was more recent. I thought it was Don Lemon. He was on Don Lemon.
Lemon.
He says Lemon. It's like, whatever. Highbrow son of a bitch. So I was pretty sure it was Don Lemon. So anyway, moving on from that.
So
Mike
what
Wallace
was
is
it?
what
Mike?
Leslie Hooker said.
Ah.
That's interesting. I could have sworn he was talking about the same thing with Don Lemon. Oh well, it's my old man brain fart. My old white guy brain fart.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of that interview where he made that statement was when he said, he asked him about Black History Month. He says, well, where's White History Month? We got all these other months. We got all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Why do I need a month? I don't want a month. Do you want a month? Where's the Jew month? Where's the Catholic month? Where's the whatever month?
Well,
it's ridiculous. And
well,
I
the blacks
totally
get
agree
it
with
now because they were denied it and oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the justification I hear for it. So exercising silliness.
As I've said many times, and it's on full display, nonstop, 24/7.
Yes.
When it's loud and in your face,
Oh, hey.
and it's telling you that, this is the way you are supposed to think, feel, and act on something, then whatever that delivery mechanism is, whatever meat sack or whatever is delivering said loud, fear, scare based kind of, if you don't do this, and a lot of us just comes from how they are going to react to you if you don't agree with them. So that's where the first part of the fear of the scare is.
That's right.
Like, what are you going to do? You're going to get all wound up, march around, create a bunch of disruption, change the meanings of words and things, introduce a whole new level of reality that the majority of people, if not all of us, don't inhabit unless you allow yourself to go there mentally. You're being told that this is the frame within which you are supposed to experience reality, and we're the arbiters, the authorities, the cops come in and do this shit for you.
Well,
Niall,
exactly.
what's going on?
Hey, Niall, how you doing?
Great. I didn't want to interrupt you, Professor.
No, that's good.
Go ahead.
We're all good here. Yeah, we're just talking about
I was just on a
racism. What?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know
Stop
me.
Talking about it, it goes away.
Yeah. You stop talking about it, it goes away.
And that's the thing is that this, if you want to, it's interesting to me if you want to see what people are trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish with narratives and these carefully crafted and curated bite size of mind worms that you're supposed to think this now, and now the words have changed. This is all, when you see all of that one of my favorite quotes is, the truth doesn't need to be defended.
It's like,
It really doesn't.
If I might jump in there and say,
yes.
The whole woke movement, it's like we're trying to overcompensating for something that doesn't need to be overcompensated for.
Indeed.
For example, the advertisements in this country, they're very carefully crafted these days. We have to have an Asian, we have to have a black person, we have to have a white person, right? So in every ad,
lots of lesbian couples over here now.
Whether it's for diapers or groceries, or whether it's for car insurance, or whether it's a couple going in and looking for a loan from the bank. They have to be interracial. Now, that is not a racial commentary that I'm suggesting here.
It's an observation.
I'm not a racist. It's just an observation. We're overcompensating, and we're overcompensating in every aspect of the entertainment industry. Like the latest series of Vikings. As far as I know, there weren't many black Vikings around.
I don't think there were.
Or Asian Vikings.
Right.
That is just an observation. It's like we have to put a black person in there because they don't, they'll complain, and so this overcompensation has kind of ruined many different aspects of
it's like
how young people think.
I was in a conversation a couple of years ago. They had announced that they were doing a new Disney movie, a live action remake of The Little Mermaid. And of course, we know The Little Mermaid came out, 25 plus years ago, 30 years ago. And it was the redheaded little white mermaid, and with the seashell bra. And so now they announced that they're going to do the new Little Mermaid live action with a black girl playing Ariel, the main character. And I'm like, who cares? So what? It's a mermaid, But the discussion was in my daughter's mermaid group was going around all around about, it's about time we have a black girl play the mermaid. And it's about to, this is so wonderful. They're just frothing over the fact that it's a black girl that's going to take the role. And
what do you think the source of that is, Scotty? Where do you think that in order let's break it down and use that first principles thinking, right? So there's a circumstance where there's an extreme expression of something that is come from some thought, some idea, some concept in an ideology and it's got ideology wrapped around it, and it's expressing itself.
Yes.
Now there's a source for that, which is, I think there's a whole bunch of different things, but
it's nothing profound. I can assure you, it's nothing profound.
Well, there's multiple parts, and I think some parts of it are pretty profound, particularly when you look at how effective. If you look at the way that ideology has, particularly a progressive ideology or a neo-lib kind of ideology, if you can see how pervasive it is across all of the institutions that we experience in reality around the globe, entertainment, technology, sports, it doesn't matter, and particularly in the academic institutions. So there's a mindset that when you are in touch with yourself, you find this realm, this new incredible world of fluid identity, and you're able to move around like you're in a video game, and you can just do what you want based on your feelings. And the consequences that a lot of them are finding out, of course, is that, there isn't one of the things I've said for a while is that, every time we declare a war on something, whatever that war is against wins. War on drugs, war on whatever, that whole thing. So when you declare, if you're going to take something and you want to make it and you want to amplify it, you simply just make a bunch of noise about it. And this is the thing that for me, just cognitively, there's got to be some serious worms and parasites that, like Gad said, calls them the psychological parasites that have come out of these teachings of this. You are inclusive, but you are important to yourself. What you feel is important. Therefore, it's okay for you to express that. And look in this bag. We got all kinds of new identities for you. You can pick one. You can wear it today, toss it tomorrow.
So what are you saying is the source?
I'm not sure what your point is.
You started asking.
I think you agree with me, and yet you disagree.
Well, no, I agree with you, and I'm saying that I think that one of the culprits of this expanded mind, extreme crazy.
It's not expanded mind. It's kind of.
Well,
I'm talking about the woke kind of.
Yeah, I'm
ridiculous entertainment.
Yeah, I understand.
Scenario. Where they're trying to rewrite history, and ethnic groups, and trying to present to the next generation of the world that really there was black people in Europe before there were black people in Africa. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're all together now, and we have to keep everyone happy.
Right? Yeah, out of place. Yeah, out of place artifacts. So, but my point is that I think there's a reason for this craziness that we're seeing going on, and I think it's an expression of this ideology that have been
there, Iowa X.
This ideology has been served up through the educational institutions, or they're not really education, they're schools. They don't educate you. They tell you what to think, not how to think. And then that crowd has proliferated into all of the other things that we see. And that's why somebody asked a question about Disney, I think, earlier. Why are they having a problem? Well, they tried. And why do they do it? Well, they think that there's going to be they're going to have to deal with it from a public relations perspective. And they've got
exactly, and that's what I'm getting at.
They have to make themselves look and appear to be open and sensitive.
Well,
in a
you
way
can see how that backfired on them very recently, with where they've gone in now to appease the LGBTQ, trans, and whatever community that's out there.
I call them the alphabet group. I can't.
It's actually no. Yeah. It's LGBTQI. I'm not sure what the I stands for.
And
plus,
XYZ.
But there is a plus.
And
then the plus.
Yes, and to appease that group, they came out and said, "We're no longer going to refer to children as boys and girls because there's so many other genders and so on." And so we're going to refer to them as young people, or whatever the innocuous thing they came up with. And everybody got really pissed off by that. Said, "Oh no, you don't."
You know what the interesting thing is? I consider myself, out of the three of us, and yes, IOX, we are three old crazy guys. I saw that, but that's good. We make good conversation.
There is no shame in me wearing that at all.
I got no problem with it.
I am not the kind of person who judges anybody on their own merits or for any reason. I would be pretty left-wing in my approach, as you know, Scotty. I don't. Yeah. I'm not conservative.
Okay.
I'm pretty outspoken about what I believe in, and I have religious connotations, as you know. But I would say that this virus that has entered into the world's view is primarily through social media and the entertainment industry.
How about that?
And also the advertising industry,
right?
And basically everything that's going to draw everybody. They're so terrified. Just let me finish my point.
Exactly,
and then,
right. Yep.
They're so terrified of insulting some racial group somewhere.
Yeah.
That they, even if you have a 30-second slot on an advertisement on the TV, they have to introduce at least 3 ethnic groups into it, and it has to be a mixed race couple, and there has to be an Asian coming through it, and we're white in this country fundamentally, and then the movies, it's like some kind of, where is everybody's brain gone? They're so terrified. We can't bring audiences in to see our films unless we have a black guy who's a superhero and an Asian woman who's a superwoman, and we can maybe the white guy can come in later on, and then the black. The whole thing has gotten so, and then we have the whole. So how do you introduce the gay guy? Well, especially Disney have a big problem with the gay community, because it's like, we can't have a guy going around like this. He's supposed to be a superhero. So, we have to introduce some feminine qualities into our heroes. So that subculture, I think it's specifically defined these days in social media and the movie industry, which is completely and utterly destroyed the viewing experience for every human on this planet. Because what they're seeing on the screen, even if it's a documentary about something, they have to be very careful what they say. They have to be careful
Yes.
who will agree with this. They have to be, because there are people out there. There are people out there who say, "Hey, you didn't really, were you being racist there by leaving us out of this conversation?" Or
Well, they don't ask if they're being racist; they declare them racist for leaving them out of the conversation.
So this is something I feel strongly about. I think it's people have just become totally brain dead when it comes to like when I saw the latest thing about Vikings Valhalla, and all of a sudden there was a black queen. I'm like, where? Well, I don't
The
think
Black
that happened.
Viking Queen. I missed
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one in history.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it,
lots of little short guys.
when it comes down to it, I don't care. If some creative director somewhere wants to cast a black person in that role, fine, go ahead. Declare yourself fantasy then, not history.
They don't, you see,
or whatever.
It's like,
when it comes down to it, somebody wants to be creative, be creative. What if you got a black guy that says, "I wish I could ever play a Viking king"? Well, you know what? Let's just do it. We'll cast you as the Viking king.
That turns into, I suppose it's
totally different thing, though.
It's again. I said something in the comments about context.
Yes,
I think fundamentally it comes down to cultural context. The culture, as I said, I have no problems with the culture at all. I never did. Gay people, I might even be gay myself. I am perfectly, honest about these things. But the way they're pushing these things is just, and historically, the way they're kind of, we have to get the latest black woman to play this role, even though this role is maybe an Asian person, but we need a black person in there. Right. Because all the blacks are giving out shit. So,
Yep.
And
that's the motivator. The black community is going to give us shit.
Yeah. And, and the white guy, okay, is he going to be, condescending towards the black woman? So she has to be strong and she has to overpower him in some way. Maybe he can come back. So the whole narrative of cultural diversity, even though we might look around and say it's fantastic, isn't it wonderful what they're doing? It's all inclusive. It's anything but. All they're doing is throwing everything in a pot and mixing it around and say, we have to keep everyone happy, So we have to rewrite history. We have to rewrite.
Well, can I jump in there?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, sorry.
I know.
I hope you get my point.
I totally got it. Totally got it. There was a couple
point.
of things you said that I'd like to make points on before I forget. So one, I think that this last point you just made about, they're trying to keep everybody happy by, making sure they're not offending anybody's sensitivities because they don't have any emotional control over their own problems. Right.
Right.
I actually think that it's the opposite. I think they're trying to agitate the shit out of everybody. And by the corporate side, when they say, okay, we've got to have a position on gays, ethnicity, trans, whatever the soup du jour is being served by this group of idiots, because they're really bad at the messaging sucks. All it does is it keeps agitation. It's stirring the pot. So they would rather have you agitate. If you're happy, hell, there's nothing that they can go tug on and get you to acquiesce to their request of the way that things are now, which is complete bullshit. So I think that it's kind of the opposite side. The other thing, to me, I'd asked earlier about what was.
Plus, they're worried about a litigation case, or
right?
They're all scared of cases.
They have to be, because we are another. We're in another level of a societal curation, because of things like the internet and the social platforms with YouTube and Facebook and all the, you twit face, the combination of the three.
Twit face, yes.
But that, because that is so pervasive, it's ubiquitous and everybody can get in. And for the most part, and you can go in there, and you shouldn't go into something that you don't feel comfortable with. You better be sure that whatever the subject matter is, or whatever the people are, or whatever, you got to know that, okay, I'm comfortable with myself. I'm going to go ahead and dive in. I'm going to go, muck around in this stuff. The ability to do that has never been around before. So those are just these rabbit holes, caverns that everybody gets sucked into.
Yeah, and it's almost like a passive aggressive approach,
Exactly right.
It's like we're not really doing this, to piss anybody off. We want to keep everyone happy, but guess what? We just have to keep somebody happy, but we can't say who they are. We just have to have them there in that situation. I mean,
and the other point that I wanted to make was going back to that source thing before I forget where I think a lot of this comes from, is this ideology of virtuous victimhood.
Yes.
Because those are two separate words, and they are the virtuous are those that think that they're doing something virtuous on the behalf of the victim. And they concoct all of these different components of, well, here's the characteristics of this group of people, and they are maligned and suppressed and victims of the system they're in. And even though they never existed before, or they maybe didn't exist in the form they are, and they all seem to keep changing.
Yeah, and this virtuous victimhood has become, that's a great
the
word.
SJWs, the social justice warriors.
And that's what all that stuff is about. And what does it do? It has all the components of the other shit I was talking about. It's loud. It's in your face. It's got fear. What I came up with, I'm going to do a shirt on this, and it's FUCD, and it's fear, uncertainty, conflict, and doubt. But when you say the word, what's it say?
Yeah.
It's I'm not sure. It wasn't really a tangent. Maybe it was a tangent that I started off with, but it was just like I get so frustrated with starting to watch. That's why I wanted to focus on the entertainment industry. Yeah, no, I didn't want to get into politics, because you guys, I'm totally opposite to you guys with politics.
How do you know what mine are?
I don't. But I don't. But no. And I'm sure
I know.
If we discuss it, we'd get the other guy going. So
I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative, and I'm dancing around in the middle of the stuff that makes sense.
I'm a Jeffersonian liberal.
The majority of what goes on out there. You look at some of this shit, and you're going, "Who came up with that?" And then they put the people that are in the legislature, in the Congress and Senate, and they put them on camera. And these people, I mean, Biden can't even string two words together, let alone a sentence. And all the other people that they've got around them, you just look at them objectively, right? Look at it with an objective neutrality. Do those people look like they're competent? I mean, you have to have some sense of discernment. You've got to be able to see things and have a sense just by seeing them and you got to make sure you manage your biases, preferences, and peccadillos, because all that shit is just a part of the way we think.
Yeah, because
but if you look at things objectively, you can look at something and go, these people, I wouldn't hire them to do anything.
I think
and then they open their mouth and confirm it.
I think that the deep thinking people of the world, the critical thinkers, such as all three of us, even though we might be old farts.
Sometimes it takes a while to get to critical thinking.
That's right.
That's right. We're at a stage where we can't actually decide what or who who is our friends, who are our enemies, who do we belong to, what our sexuality is, who do we trust, and there's all this kind of this aspect on political correctness across.
That's an oxymoron.
It's an oxymoron. Yeah, because we don't even understand what political correctness is these days. It's like you can go into a store and you can say something to a woman who is white or Asian or black or any other ethnicity, and she can accuse you of racism. She can accuse you of anything, or he can accuse you of anything. And
sure.
The whole thing, I'm surprised the whole world is just not imploding at this stage. And yes,
let me say this.
The message that we're hearing is that we're opening up everything.
Yeah,
we're opening up everything.
Let me just say that one of the reasons and the characteristics of the whatever the message is, with all of that extra extreme language and intensity and emotions and all the other shit that goes along with it. One of the key characteristics of that is that it's a small group of people. And I mean small relative to the rest of the planet. The stuff that we're seeing in this concocted gruel that they're trying to get everybody to chow down on is that it's in isolated pockets of what are currently defined as countries or nations. Okay. And I'm stepping out into the future. I'm going out on the tiny little thin twig of speculation.
I actually disagree. I think it's all pervasive.
Okay. It is. It seems that way because that's what you see. But if you go out and go anywhere around where all of that stuff that you see on the feed, it's a big feed bucket coming out of the corporate media. You go outside of that, you don't see any of this shit.
That's true.
The only places that you see it are in concentrations of a small group relative to the total group in that, like Chicago.
Yeah,
Chicago's got a bunch of idiots. I live there.
That's now, but I'm actually thinking of more in terms of the next generation. I mean, the message that is being sent out now, the next generation is just going to be like,
they can't start a push mower.
They can't. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not going to be even able to figure out who they are, who they can talk to, who they're going to offend, what they can say, who's in their neighborhood. Even the guy who's selling the goddamn houses or whatever, he has to make sure that that there's a certain ethnicity, there's a certain broad spectrum.
Just the three of us, we are in the pale male white old man.
Yeah, exactly. There's no black guy here tonight.
We are fucked.
That's
we're gonna have the black and Asian community picketing this show because we don't have them represented here.
Yeah, but three white old bastards. What do they know? There's no representative. From
and if you try to make comedy out of it and say, "Oh, I could represent the Asian community very well tonight," you're going to get picketed for that.
Yeah, exactly.
I like what John Cleese said. I've mentioned this before, but I saw a bit where he was being interviewed, John Cleese from the old Monty Python, and he said, political correctness anymore. He says, you can't insult anyone. Well, except the Mexicans. We can insult the Mexicans.
And except, the Jews. Oh, well, no, but
Yes.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, if we were to bring on a black guy tonight, it would seem totally patronizing. Or we're bringing on, just for balance, we're bringing on somebody from the African American community, and I mean, how would that look? It would look like we're just bringing them on.
It only looks that way because it only looks that way because that's the way people have been conditioned to see it.
That's right.
Now,
I believe this is a real culture crisis. It's absolutely a culture crisis.
Now we have African American black folks that listen to this show. One of them was even in the channel tonight.
Do you have any Jews?
Got any Scotty? One of them was even in the channel tonight. I mean, for God's sake, we're all human beings.
That's what I can say. I can say just like everybody else. I've got black friends.
Yeah.
So
I
there
have
was
gay
one
friends.
even here in the channel tonight.
Yeah.
One
I
of them.
have LGBTQI plus friends. No, I don't. I don't
Whatever
even know what
that
the
is.
I
Yeah.
stands for, But anyway, I have them,
Yeah. And
And
I've got, he sent me, it was sitting there just the other day. It must have fallen behind. He sent me a card and some gifts a while back, several months ago. He sent me a bunch of Star Trek collectible action figures.
yeah,
that he'd
and the,
picked
the
up.
funny thing
a
about
whole
this,
box of them, and
yeah,
a big card that thanked me for what I do on the show,
yeah.
and I thought that was very cool.
No,
And
listen,
I'm just an old white guy from Wisconsin.
who cares about the color? See, culturally,
That's
I think all of this is going to backlash seriously because we're going to be so concerned about how we speak to people of the opposite sex or another gender or trans, and we have so much concern about keeping everybody happy that we're actually going to lose the ability to communicate with each other.
Right.
Okay, which is ironically, the corporations would claim that this is going to open up the world to us. All it's going to do is make everybody so frightened of their neighbor if they don't talk the right way, if they don't say the right thing, and who is
Right.
here. And this is. I used to work in advertising. You might have guessed. So
Yes.
back in advertising, a bunch of white people, right, doing an ad. That was it, right? No big deal. If it was a bunch of black people, it'd be no big deal either. If it was a bunch of Asians, no big deal either. Now it has to be an Asian, a black person, and a white person in every ad, right?
Right.
So they have to be an interracial couple of some sort.
That's what you were talking about earlier.
Yes.
And it's very frustrating. And this actually, believe it or not, Scotty, this does circle back down to Aurelius.
I know. I can tell where you're going.
Yeah.
Hey, Rainey, will you come here, please? Morgan Snow is very concerned that we don't have a female represented here tonight.
Yeah, I'd love to know
my
what
lovely wife, Rainey.
I'd love to know what Rainey thinks about this. Yeah. If she
Crap.
does.
It's all a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
Point of view.
Just everything. It spiraled off of Marcus Aurelius, and we started talking about the racism stuff and all of that. I don't even know what you'd call this, because it's not just a topic about. We weren't talking about racism. We were mentioning representation by the different cultures, and
we were talking about all the craziness, who the crazies are, how many they are, what we think might be fueling them, which is clearly something that, like we were talking about.
I came in to be more diversified.
Say what?
What? You don't think any differently than we do, Dave?
I'm a white-haired, long-haired, long-beard hippie, so
there you go.
Well, you need to go back to your corner then, because
yeah. We're only conservative white dudes.
Dave, there's no room for.
I bring the
like
diversity.
Diversity. Yeah. There's no room.
Well,
And
here's the
funny
thing:
is,
we are an inclusive collective group of collected inclusives. So
anyone enjoying a scotch and a cigar while driving. I
only caught the scotch and cigar part.
Yeah.
Quiet and go to bed.
Quiet and go to bed. Hey. I'm going to put that on camera. You keep it up. You're supposed to be older and wiser. You want to be 16, 17. You're only 10. Stop acting like a 4-year-old. Knock it off. That's it.
School needs to be year round.
Well, then,
Year-around school, please. Yes, you have my vote.
Raising Vinny Olsen's, that's all I have to say.
Right.
That's not Olsen we saw going on there. That's
Scotty. Can't back down.
not me. So sorry for that familial interlude, folks.
Oh, that was nice to
part
have.
of the.
It's
It
your
was nice to
show,
have
Scotty.
some balance.
It's
I
your
mean,
show.
Part
there's
of
a
the
lot of
disrespect they have for each
testosterone
other. Part of the disrespect they have for each other right now as kids is reflected in their disrespect for what their mom and dad are telling them to do, especially when the radio show's going.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we don't have an enclosed studio here. So they all know they're supposed to act certain ways, but do they do it? No, not when it conflicts with what they want to do. So,
which is a good segue back to...
I don't care if she kicked you
what you're
first.
doing.
You can stop it. I've
Yeah,
told you that 100 times. So there you go, folks. Diversity. My kids represent the children of the world. God save us.
We are the
Highly
world.
disciplined, naughty children. of the
Yes.
world.
We are the children. Remember that?
We are the ones who make
Oh,
it
yeah,
better.
yeah.
Was that Pepsi or Coke? The
Grooving.
Coke?
So,
And look what happened with the guy who was singing that song. Yeah.
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
He was not looking at the man in the mirror.
I don't think so.
I'm talking to
Irishman,
the
a
man
Welshman,
in
and
the
a
mirror.
Scot.
What?
I said an Irishman, we got a Welshman, we got a Scot.
Yeah, and you got
Are you
Bauer.
English?
Bauer's
I'm English, Irish, and German.
So there you go.
Basic equal parts, I think.
There it is.
It goes off into some
She
group of nefarious people that had some colorful and questionable backgrounds, and we stopped looking after we got into that group.
So, Dave, where are you driving to?
Commuting home from painting.
Where's
painting.
that?
Oh, yeah, sweet.
Painting. Where's painting?
Minnesota. I'm driving from Minneapolis basically to Rochester.
so it's roughly a 50-mile trip.
Oh, that's
80.
So, there you go. Well, thanks for coming and
Let's
representing.
talk about something real like time travel.
womankind for us. I don't want to get into another.
Let's talk
topic.
about time travel. Yeah, okay.
Too late in the at night for me to start broaching new topics. So,
Well, yeah.
Not a good topic.
okay.
Professor Bauer brought it up 20 minutes ago.
thanks for coming
Good
in
night.
and being representative,
I think.
Rainey.
Unless I'm mistaken, yeah,
I have
Professor.
a skirt
I don't
here
think you.
once in a
I
while.
don't think you mentioned time travel. Maybe you didn't.
Yeah, I think there was. I know I was thinking about time compression because to finish off all that bullshit we were talking about earlier, wrapping up Niall and Scotty's comments too, and in mine, and hopefully it'll make sense.
Good night, Rainey, says Leslie.
The level of angst that is being driven into the social fabric through all these ideologies, these new ways to define words, define people, define reality. It's like I was saying, it's really almost like you would walk into a virtual reality game.
Yeah.
Well, I get to be this, and I'm going to go do that because that's what I can do while I'm here. Well, there hasn't been any. There's no. I keep looking for which one I want first. There's no common sense. People don't have the ability to use discernment and discretion and discrimination with how they react to what they're told. And if you're told that you have to accept all of these new variables that were never there before, and you're being told by a group of people that are very loud, they're very noisy, they're very angry, they're very animated, and they're motivated to get you to convince you to follow what they want. Well, if you just took 3 or 4 of these things, they're in conflict with each other, but they're in the big pot of that ideology, of that way of thinking. Okay. So what happens is that little pot gets stoked. People keep throwing shit in there. And I agree with what I think, Scotty, you said this, that it's going to end. I mean, it's eating itself. This whole mind virus is eating itself from within because it's creating people that are promoting and pushing for things that common sense doesn't jive with. And so so just take it to this simple thing. You're going to sell a product. If you're going to sell a product, either the people are going to like it and they're going to buy it, or they're not. If they don't like it and then you tell everybody they still have to buy it, that's not going to work out.
Well, that's what advertising was for.
Right? Yeah, I know. I've been in marketing doing the same thing. I hear you. But my point is that if the product you're selling is so shitty that people have to get in your face, yell at you, fuck with your life, do all these things in order for it to be bought, then it's just going to die on its own. It's
going to die. That was my point from the beginning.
Yes.
I didn't. I think Scotty gets this. I didn't come on here as a rant. About advertising and all the false messages that we're getting in the movies and all that kind of stuff. It's a cultural. It's a completely cultural crisis, and to such an extent that people are questioning who they are and what they feel and how they feel things for and who they feel things for, and ironically and paradoxically, they'll end up hating those people because they're being told that they have to love those people, right?
Right.
I can't. And I'm not racist when I say that. You have to understand that. It's just like if you're told
right back.
we're a very organized society now and all inclusive. So you have to be open to all of these possibilities in your life. And the entertainment industry and the advertising industry are, horrific at this. So if you're 14, 15, 16 years of age in the coming generation, and you think, well, I have to be careful what I say to this person, I have to say. And also, if you have a particular sexual preference for a white person or a black person or an Asian person, well, I have to be all inclusive. So I have to. I've been told that I have to include.
I just
one big family.
Yeah, I don't even deal with it.
But it's important. It's important.
I have not run into one encounter in the last 10 years that I can think of. Both that's time in Atlanta and the last 7 here, where any of those issues about whether somebody was trans or not, gay or not, what race, I have not encountered it.
Yeah, but
that's the point that I was making earlier.
The three of us won't, but the next generation, I guarantee, will.
Well, that is something to be concerned about.
Yeah,
but I think,
for example, your children, Scotty, will face this.
Yeah,
they will face this. And that's something to be aware of.
Yeah.
So that's all.
I'm aware of it every day. I just wonder how they're going to face it. So, anyway.
Yeah, whether it's a face palm, or it's a slap face.
I got that one down.
The face could be anything.
That's right. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this up for tonight. I appreciate both of you. Niall, I appreciate your input. It means a lot to me to have you come on and spew your guts with us. And Professor Bauer, same thing, brother. Got to get you on the regular show sometime in the very near future, maybe even this week yet. We'll see.
Well, if you really want to do the time travel thing,
I do want to hop back into that.
I suggest doing a show on that, and then it can spill over into the cabin if you want.
That's what I'm saying.
Because there's plenty of stuff in there. There's plenty of time in time, in case you didn't.
That's what I'm thinking. Make it one of the regular shows, maybe even this week. We'll talk later.
Yeah,
and try to get logistics worked out.
Have yours, give mine, and we'll yank.
I'm going to let you both go, Niall. Good night.
Okay. Peace.
And Professor Bauer, good night. Love you, man.
Good night, sir.
Talk to you soon. All right, folks, that's it. That's all we got tonight. That's all I'm doing anyway. And so I appreciate the fact that you're all here, that you all gave me your time, and that you keep coming back. Live long and prosper.